Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I was just mentioning how the rules under the public health has affected the work of the Electoral Commission, has affected them in terms of commencement of general elections with the nomination of candidates for special interest groups. It should have been on the 6th of April. It wasn't. It has also affected them since special interest groups, committees, elections form part of the general elections activities. The roadmap, the entire roadmap has been affected, and Chairman, and the political parties' primaries also could not take place, and parties could not identify their flag bearers. But we are mentioning that despite the outbreak of COVID, Articles 61(2) of the Constitution, 77(3), 105, and 181 of the Constitution require the Electoral Commission to conduct general elections since the current term of office of the President, of members of Parliament, and the elective office bearers at the district level is due to expire on 12th May 2021. This date is derived from the Constitution. It's not just put there. It's a date which is firm. And then second, as you are all aware, the Electoral Commission has issued a revised roadmap to enable it to exercise its constitutional mandate under Article 61(2) of the Constitution to conduct the general elections by 8th February 2021. Again, this date is also derived from the Constitution. Section 27(1) of the Political Parties and Organizations Act 2005 empowers the Minister responsible for Justice and Constitutional Affairs to make regulations with the approval of Parliament for implementation of the provision of the Act. This is what brings me here, sir. Then the purpose of these regulations. The purpose is simply to facilitate political parties and organizations in conducting their internal elections for purposes of identifying political party flag bearers to contest in the next general elections due in February 2021. This is to be done without compromising the safety and guidelines under the Public Health Control of COVID-19 Rules 2020. I should emphasize this point. These elections must be held without compromising the safety of the citizens. Mr. Chairman, the challenge which we face is because, in accordance with the revised roadmap of the electoral commissions, political parties and organizations are required to identify flag bearers for the next general elections between 22nd June 2020 to 21 July 2020. This is for special interest groups. This requires different political parties to hold meetings, rallies, and conferences to select their flag bearers to be forwarded to the Electoral Commission for nomination as candidates sponsored by every political party or organization. This is the challenge. And as I mentioned earlier, under the Public Health Control of COVID-19 Rules 2020, specifically Rule 91E, the minister responsible for health banned public meetings. These included political parties, political rallies, conferences, and cultural-related meetings. This has rendered it impossible for political parties and organizations to select flag bearers in accordance with their respective political party constitutions. Currently, the political parties or organizations are facing the following challenges. One, the organs of the political parties and organizations need to conduct meetings for purposes of electing office bearers. That includes flag bearers for the general elections, and in accordance with the revised electoral roadmap, this commenced on 30th June 2020. The organs of different political parties and organizations comprise between 30,000 and some of the cases 15,000 persons at different levels. Political party flag bearers are chosen by meetings or conferences of party delegates or by adult suffrage of registered party members. These bodies comprise hundreds and in some cases thousands of members congregating in one place, which will not be possible during this period with health risks associated with the large gatherings. The constitution of the political parties and organizations provide for election of office bearers, flag bearers in different ways. For example, the NRM Constitution, I have a copy here, provides for election by way of lining up behind candidates, which require large numbers of people to congregate at the designated voting area. Therefore, it would be impossible to hold elections, for instance, of party flag bearers from national elective offices without breaching the health rules and presenting a significant health risk to the population. Further, a change to the party constitutions to accommodate alternative modes of meeting and election is not possible, as this would require a meeting of the same conferences that pose a health risk. It is on this basis, Mr. Chairman, that there is urgent need to provide a means by which political parties and organizations can conduct their internal elections for purposes of democratically identifying flag bearers as required by Article 71 and Article 72 of the Constitution. So, Chairman, because of all this, there is justification to have these rules. And the justification for these rules is basically based on three fundamental principles. Number one is safety and security considerations. This is a very important point. The safety and security of citizens in the prevailing health situation in the country. It is very important, and the health advice is that it is not safe to hold elections in the usual traditional, conventional manner at this material time. I emphasize protecting the lives of citizens and their property is the first duty of government. And this is a duty the government cannot delegate. Thus, there is a need to enable political parties democratically conduct their internal elections for purposes of identifying flag bearers if the Electoral Commission is to conduct elections under multi-party political dispensation. That's one fundamental principle. The second fundamental principle is the legal and constitutional requirement. Mr. Chairman, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it must be protected, it must be defended, and we must protect it. We must respect it. Accordingly, to uphold the Constitution, presidential, general parliamentary, and local government council elections must be held within the first 30 days of the 122 days before the expiration of the term of government. Without political parties conducting their internal election to elect flag bearers, the elections cannot be held, thereby creating a constitutional vacuum that is likely to cause a crisis that we can avoid. Third, Mr. Chairman, public expectations. I want to emphasize that the public expects elections by 8th of February 2021, as has been the case since 1996. I should emphasize Uganda has consistently held elections every 5 years for sustainable peace, security, and stability of the country. This can only be achieved if political parties are facilitated to conduct the internal elections without compromising the existing COVID rules. Chairman, since the adoption of the 1995 Constitution, the country has transited from the period of cancelling elections, declaring states of emergency, because we would want this trend to continue as a hallmark of transiting from the past when we postponed elections. We know it. 1967 it was postponed, 71 it was postponed, 85 it was postponed. The consequences have been, it is history, it is on record. The country is at peace, there is no external aggression. We would want the elections, as we have done since 1996, to be done. Now, the legal framework, I have very distinguished people here. Mr. Chairman, the relevant laws are also known. The relevant laws regulating political parties and organizations are Articles 71, 72, and 73 of the Constitution. These are there. The Political Parties and Organizations Act 2005 that mainly regulates the registration, the operation of political parties and organizations. Then the respective political party constitutions that are registered with the Electoral Commission and which provide for internal management of political parties and organizations. The legal framework is very well established. So, Chairman, having considered the relevant provisions of the above-mentioned legal instruments, and in particular, Section 27(1) of the Political Parties and Organizations Act 205, which empowers the Minister responsible for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, with the approval of Parliament, to make regulations for the implementation of the provisions of the Act, and specifically Section 10 of the Act, which provides for the internal organization of political parties or organizations, including conducting elections in accordance with the democratic principles enshrined in the Constitution. These regulations have been made to give further effect to Section 10 of the Act. Since the party constitution operates under the laws of Uganda, which govern the internal organization of political parties, in order to allow the political parties to choose leaders and sponsor candidates in a democratic manner as required by Article 71 of the Constitution and Section 10 of the PPOA, regulations have been made. These regulations have been made under the Act to allow parties whose democratic processes is constrained by COVID-19 measures to employ other democratic means. These regulations should be seen as facilitators, not really preventing. Honorable Chairman, honorable members, once these regulations receive the approval of Parliament, and I would really plead with you that they get that approval, and are signed into law, they supersede the political party constitution in terms of making provision for the conduct of internal party affairs in a manner that complies with COVID-19 health and safety rules. Mr. Chairman, the political parties and organizations conduct, these are the rules, of meetings and elections regulation 2020, provide for alternative modes which political parties or organizations may adopt in conducting meetings for purposes of electing flag bearers from the traditional ways of holding physical meetings or conferences to elect the flag bearers and other party office bearers. The regulations provide several options, and I think this is the flexibility of these rules. They provide several options from which political parties and organizations may adopt in holding their meetings. The options include, and they are defined in the statutory instrument. Number one, virtual meetings, also defined. Number two, resolutions by meetings by circulations. It is also defined. Phased elections is defined. Secret ballots, lining up behind the candidate of choice or the candidate's agent. Election by electoral college comprising members of an organ of the political party or organization. Further, election by another organ of the political party or organization other than the designated by the constitution of the political party or organization, whose membership is of a number that can lawfully convene without a breach of public health restrictions provided under COVID-19 rules. And finally, any combination, this is the flexibility, any combination of all these, of the above, or any other method of meeting or election at the Electoral Commission of a political party or organization may approve. The regulations also provide that the executive committee of a political party or organization shall have the power to extend the term of office of members of the party's organs, except the executive committee itself, which has a fixed term of 5 years under Section 10(3) of the Act, where it is not practical to hold elections on account of public health restrictions. The extension shall not exceed 6 months after lifting of the public health restrictions. In conclusion, Chairman, honorable members, I can only urge Parliament to approve the political parties and organizations' conduct of meetings and elections regulation in 2020, whose regulations are before you in accordance with Section 27(1) of the Political Parties and Organizations Act 2005. These are intended, Chairman, to facilitate political parties and organizations in conducting their internal elections for purposes of identifying political party flag bearers to contest in the next general elections. Let me repeat why these regulations have had to be made. Number one, COVID is an epidemic, but it is not something that would warrant a declaration of state of emergency to postpone the elections. If we are disciplined, as we have been disciplined so far, from the outbreak up to today, we have behaved and we have avoided death. In similar manner, we can respect these rules and conduct elections without postponing elections. So for us, postponing elections, maybe let me state it this way. If we continue to manage COVID pandemic, and if the situation improves so that the safety of our population is ensured, postponing election is not an option. It's not an option we are considering because we think the country, disciplined as it has shown, can conduct this election taking into account health regulations. I submit, thank you. And I would now, if you permit me, Chairman, because last time you raised issues of practical nature, how is the Electoral Commission going to implement the provisions of Article 7, questions of are you ready or aware COVID pandemic has presented unique health safety situations? All those questions you raised last time, if you permit me, because that's why I came with a team. That's why I came with the Land Attorney General, and I have come with the Electoral Commission. Electoral Commission, of course, is independent, but we all account to you, sir. If you permit me, then the question of specific reply to the specific question that you raised, I could invite the Attorney General, and in turn, the Attorney General, being principal legal advisor of government, can collaborate with the Electoral Commission to answer specific questions which were raised in our last meeting last time. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, of course your prayers will be granted. I just wanted to know the procedural question raised earlier, whether the copies of what you've just stated has been made available to you so that you can submit to the committee. You know, we really got ourselves indulged so much to, I hope we are not asking too much. Two, I think the Attorney General and you would get into some of the questions that were policy in nature. The Electoral Commission may not work in collaboration with the Attorney General, since you said they are independent. The operational, specific questions, you would still let them answer in their own right. So the Attorney General, please, the Land Attorney General.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and the honorable members of Parliament gathered here this morning. It seems to me that as far as the Attorney General's response is concerned, it would be limited, in my view, to simply explaining to you, if it is even necessary, because I know as members of Parliament you are all fully aware of the law and the umbrella under which we are in these circumstances. The two being the Political Parties Organization Act and, of course, the Constitution. You know, at the expense of repetition, the issue here is under what circumstances are we appearing, or is the minister appearing, by the introduction of these regulations, is appearing to change the usual mode of how elections are conducted in this country. And first, the general and main answer to this is because we are faced with different and unusual circumstances. In my view, these require no debate. They are not only unique to Uganda, but to the whole world. The COVID-19 pandemic is known all over the world, and it has created a change in how our lives are conducted. Now, nobody needs to be reminded about a lockdown, which was very hard on our people. Nobody needs to be reminded about the closure of borders, which, as you know, greatly hampered trade. Again, a big problem to our people. So the general issue, before I just tell you about the legal one, is that this is not a making or anything unique to Uganda. COVID-19 is a factor of the world. Now we go to the Political Parties and Organization Act. Having stated the background of why they are unique circumstances. They are not the creation of the government, they are just a national, or rather an international fact. Having said that, you will now go to why, as I have heard, and I hope I'll answer one or two questions on that, why some of the political parties feel that there is an interference in the individual parties' internal affairs, so to speak. So for that one, I go to number 10, clause 10 of the Political Parties and Organizations Act. Section 10 of the Political Parties and Organizations Act. The 10 refers to the internal organization of political parties or organizations. Subsection 1 says that a political party or organization shall, in its internal organization, in its internal organization, comply with the provisions of the Constitution, in particular Articles 71 and 72. That is what this Act tells us. So it sends us to the Constitution. So I go to the Constitution. 71. Article 71 says, a political party in this era, the multi-party political system, shall conform to the following principles. A, they shall have a national character. B, shall not be based on sex, ethnicity, religion, or other. But C, which is the one that I suppose Section 10 was sending us to, says that the internal organization of a political party shall conform to the democratic principles enshrined in this Constitution. Talks about the democratic principles enshrined in this Constitution. Then it also takes us to 72. When you read that 10, it sends us to 72. 72, the subtitle is Right Form Political Organizations. And it says that this right is guaranteed to all political parties. And then 72.2 says, you shall not operate as a political party unless you conform to the principles laid down in this Constitution. So that's the second one. The third, 72.3 says, Parliament shall by law regulate the financing as well as the functioning of political parties. That's the one that interests me, that this Parliament is empowered to regulate by law the functioning of political organizations. So, having read Section 10 of the Political Parties Act, and it has taken me to the right places in 71 and 72, then I come to the fact that I started with. We have this strange scenario of the health hazard known as COVID-19. That health hazard took us to the public health regulations that we are all aware of, that we are all operating with, that we are all, apart from Honorable Nsereko, that we are all dressed in this way. It is not a fashion, it is simply because there is a reason. I pointed him out because
Let's avoid being examples for the Attorney General.
I avoided the Shadow Attorney General out of respect. So I picked I picked a friend.
Let's put on our mask to avoid being examples.
I picked a friend.
I thought you've just come. Do you have a
I didn't ask anyone to put on mask. I just said that the reason why we are all in this way is because there is a health hazard. Then, Chair, after going to those...
And you made the important point that it's not a fashion.
It's not fashionable.
Nobody would want to regulate. Nobody would like to appear like this. It's not a fashion.
No,
Yeah.
Please, go on.
in fact, it blocks my glasses. I can't even see.
Thank you, sir. So, so then, as I've already said, the government and the minister highlighted the issue about the government's obligation to keep safe the people of Uganda. This is the job of the government, to keep people safe. And like I said, the COVID-19 was not a product in a government laboratory. We found COVID-19, and we must comply to help our people to remain safe. Then the government said, how will we conduct elections if we cannot do them in a manner that keeps the lives of our people safe under the provisions of the Public Health Statute? Then I went to Section 27 of the Political Parties and Organizations Act. This one says, sir, permit me to read it. Section 27 under regulations. The minister, the one seated on my right-hand side, with the approval of Parliament, will make regulations for the implementation of the provisions of this Act. The second one is about penalties, if there are contraventions. So now, sir, in the context of these four, Section 10 of the political parties, Section 27, and the two articles of the Constitution, Article 71 and 72, I found that I had ring-fenced our constitutional mandate to now see, in order to meet the constitutional mandate of holding elections every 5 years. How can we do this under these circumstances? I found that these four pieces of legislation ring-fenced our ability to bring these rules to see, and I was saying it last time, that together with the political parties, to see how we can conduct the elections but remain safe. To see how we can conduct the elections but remain safe. So once we had found those four, we now went to trying to draft these regulations. And I dare say we would be happy to hear something else that might be added, if it is not there, in conformity with our desire to have these elections, while least keeping clear attention to the public health risks. Why? Because the public health risks, if abused, result in death. And remember, I said that the job of the government is to keep all its citizens alive. So, sir, as far as I was concerned, that is what we did and have brought these regulations for your interrogation.
Before you take leave, in your opinion as the landed Attorney General of Uganda, is there any contradiction? I know there are contradictions, but is there a contradiction that infringes upon, contravenes the Constitution? Specifically, are there such that these regulations they are bringing up is against the Constitution?
No, because the reason why I was belaboring.
We just want to have you on record.
Yes.
Whether there is any of the proposed clauses here is in contravention of the Constitution.
No, not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. And of course, Chair, when you the manner of your question suggests that you are trying to entrap the Attorney General of Uganda, and that's precisely what I'm saying. And yet, the spirit, sir, of your invitation is so that together we can. I'm quite happy. There are many lawyers in this room, and they will tell you there is always a lawyer for the plaintiff and the one for the defendants. And everybody makes a very strong case for themselves.
And in this case, you are for the plaintiff.
I am
for the defendant.
I am for the Republic of Uganda.
No, I just want to give you.
Yes.
I just want to give you a brief. I told you we've received opinions.
Yes.
Yeah, that was not my question. I just wanted you to be clear that you know for sure. We can't deny that there are no this thing, the regulations, is sorting out contradictions. But in sorting out...
It is an attempt to sort out contradictions. Because,
yes.
Because it means you are faced with certain new circumstances and you are trying to get the best you can. Yes.
And the contradiction is not man-made.
Precisely.
And yes, so I'm saying that because other people have said that it contravenes. The very articles you were referring to, So I just wanted you,
Yeah, yes.
nobody else can comfort this country about the constitutionality or unconstitutionality of a matter before the Committee of Parliament, other than the landed Attorney General. So I was not entrapping you. You are too big to be entrapped by
I thank
a
you.
mere chairman.
No, yeah, but he might make attempts.
I just didn't.
Now, Honorable Chair, I wanted to, I see the Honorable Basari as soon as he can leave his phone. And I'm saying this,
The reading the notes he presented here.
yeah, and I'm
about
saying
you.
it. I'm just raising the issue. If you allow me, Mr. Chair, to address the issue. Sorry? Oh, that you lay down. You lay. What is it, Basari? That should be a sign of friendship. You should be very happy that your friend has picked on you. I have not said anything wrong. I just wanted your attention. So,
Well,
Honorable Chair.
Well, Mr. Chairman, sorry for intervention. I just wanted to allay the anxiety of members by requesting that I formally hand to you copies of my presentation.
You formally lay.
Formally lay on the table.
Yes.
The copies of the presentation and as well as the copies of the statutory instrument that is proposed.
Thank you. It's received. Thank you. We do all this in anticipation that if there's somebody not satisfied with us and they want to get redress somewhere, and this is transcribed, these recordings, the audio, we want to follow the procedures, not that we are bothering the, Yes. So, Attorney General, you were concluding?
Yes. And why I was referring to the Honorable Basalirwa, because I have heard him and many others raise the issue. So if you permit me, our response to the issue of why not declare a state of emergency. Because it has been brought to our attention that there is a line of thought that thinks that our best bet out of this is to declare a state of emergency. I'm sure you have heard of that, Honorable Chair.
I heard before you did.
Yeah. So you might want to know, sir, that that's where we started in our thinking. So anyway, and I think, and like I said, we came here and we come here always in the spirit of presenting what we think is the best solution and listening to alternative facts. Now, the argument that I have heard, and I'm happy to hear others or happy to hear the same, were that this type of voting and this type of office bearer election departs from the usual type that we always had before, and that is why members are saying that in this somewhat infringes on the freedom of people. Somebody was saying last time when I was here that the voters need to see you, they need to see your dress code, they need to see your, to hug you.
Yeah.
She's saying to hug you. And we were saying that all that would have been all right, but for the pandemic. All that would. So sometimes it appears to me that we temporarily suspend the idea that we are under unusual circumstances. And yet we are. Because hugging in and of itself is one of the main things. It is such close body contact. And of course, my colleagues here will come later. It is one of the main things that the health rules ask us not to participate in. Close contact. That is why I picked on the Honorable Nsereko to put on a mask, yet he's so far away from me. But they tell us that the droplets, etc., etc. So, sir, here is my quick answer to why. My quick answer to why we think there should be no state of emergency. You see, this is a situation, as you all know, under 110 of the Constitution, Article 110, which permits the government to call a state of emergency. If I go to it quickly, it says that the main one, the President may, in consultation with the Cabinet, by proclamation, declare that a state of emergency exists in Uganda or any part of Uganda if he is satisfied that circumstances exist in Uganda or in that part of Uganda, and the circumstances are there. One, that it is threatened by war or external aggression. Two, in which the security or the economic life of the country or that part is threatened by internal insurgency or natural disaster. Or three, which render necessary the taking of measures which are required for securing the public safety, the defense of Uganda, and the maintenance of public order and supplies and services essential to the life of the community.
Can we have some order? We all know where Honorable Kajara comes from, but can you make use of the bottle of water in front of you to neutralize? Yes, please.
So those are the circumstances by which, under the Constitution, the President may declare a state of emergency. Then the subsection 2, that it shall remain in existence for not more than 90 days, and subsection 3 is to lay before Parliament. Now, our view is, and the Minister already said it, and I'm sure all of you members are aware, that the fact of the matter is that currently, Uganda, on the evidence available, is perhaps one of the countries that has best handled this crisis. This is a matter of fact. One of the best. No known recorded death, even though in our neighboring countries there has been multiple reports of multiple deaths. Internationally, the deaths are in thousands, as you all know, hundreds of thousands in some places. And actually, our fear is that yes, he's telling me that not only are there no deaths, but there are so many recoveries. But
you know, it's very difficult to whisper when you have masks. So we actually heard what he said.
Oh, the good thing is that there are no secrets. So, sir, in fact, I myself have argued in the Cabinet that therein lies our problem. Our problem lies in our success, because it is because of our almost exemplary handling of this crisis that we have led, or had people have been misled to think that there is no COVID. Now, this is simply because if you put on a bulletproof vest and somebody shoots you and you walk away, and then the neighbor, Professor Kamuntu, says that the bullet is useless, and he puts out his chest, there are no prizes for guessing what will happen to him. So it is simply because of our exemplary management of this matter that there has been no deaths. So that is why we think that there is no crisis. And we cannot say, let us relax these things so that some people die so that we know that there is a problem. Because now that is abdication, thank you, madam, of your duty as the one empowered to look after the people. You cannot allow the people to know how serious it is by ensuring that they die. So, because of that, I was telling you about the state of emergency. We think there is no basis for declaring a state of emergency. Now, the reported causes, it's our obligation, I was already saying, to take necessary measures to secure the public safety. And as you are all aware, in February of this year, when the first cases of COVID were declared, a number of measures and restrictions under the Public Health Act were undertaken by the government. You remember we even closed the airport. You remember we even closed the borders. And there was a big outcry because of the lines of trucks, into Kenya. And we seemed to be wanting to stifle the very economic lifeblood of our people. Now, nobody does that at a whim. Nobody does that for pleasure. Nobody does that for fun. We are only doing all that in order to ensure that our people remained alive. And the evidence, again, as I said, is not a secret. Honorable Asumani, again, it is not a secret. There are no deaths in Uganda so far. And you can't say the same for any nation around the region. I don't want to go internationally. Any nation around the region. So, we find that there is no reason. Because and now we are lifting some of the restrictions. At great pain, but we are lifting them. Now, under Articles 44, 46, and 47 of the Constitution, were we to declare a state of emergency, these would lead to restrictions on other things, which we don't want, Honorable Chair, leading to restrictions on normal economic, civil, or political activity and rights of citizens. If I would just finish, sir, in just a minute, yeah, because otherwise you'll disrupt me, Honorable Okupa, my good friend.
If you are English, you can say Ikupa, but you are an African.
I was speaking as an Englishman. In order to address these extraordinary circumstances that will have given rise, the problem again, Sir Chair, the problem of the state of emergency is that there is a danger of taking advantage of it to introduce some other restrictions or for any other self-serving purposes. Because once you declare a state of emergency, you now retain certain powers, and you might use them for self-serving purposes. So I'm just saying the reason why we opted against the declaration of a state of emergency. And that's why I gave the history, the simple background of where we were now. Therefore, sir, considering that currently in Uganda the cases of COVID-19 have been contained, mainly by applying these health restrictions and measures, and these measures have proved to be efficient, because I've already reminded you that the evidence is there. They have proved to be efficient to control the spread. We therefore think there is no justification or circumstances that exist currently in Uganda for the president to declare a state of emergency. That is our reasoning for why we think the state of emergency is not applicable at this point in time. So I thought, after first laying for you...
Just before from myself,
yes, sir.
From the chair, how would the state of emergency help? Why do people declare a state of emergency? It's in the Constitution. But how would it help? Because when you declare, in my thinking, is you are suspending operations of some of the rules and what to help you in the procurement of things to manage the situation. As the Attorney General, you've made a case for no, maybe help Ugandans, help us to appreciate what are we missing in the state of emergency.
Thank you, Chair. You are saying how would a state of emergency help? I'm answering to you that a state of emergency cannot help. I'm saying precisely that. I'm saying to you that it cannot help, because everything that we could have done under a state of emergency, I'm saying we can do now And we are doing now. Actually, my answer to you is that in our view, a state of emergency would not help in any way or make this situation any better than it is now. That is our view. That is our view. And it was in answer to what I was hearing people saying, why can't he declare a state of emergency? Then, so our view is that no, we shouldn't declare because we do not see how it would help now. At least those are our views. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now the Chair, Electoral Commission, you answer the question. Minister, you wanted again something?
Just to add to the excellent presentation from the Attorney General on the legal dimension, there is also yes. No, I was.
They will get opportunity to clear so that the report writing reflects the true picture.
No, I was just adding that in addition to the excellent explanation why government has not found it necessary to declare state of emergency as presented by the Attorney General, there is also a historical mission that since the adoption of this Constitution in 1985, the country has transited. It has transited from the periods of postponing elections. We have transited, we are now in a multi-party political dispensation, and as a result, we have had since then elections every 5 years. And that mission of stability and security is a trend we would want to commit ourselves to. Internationally, it would be difficult, and domestically, it would be very difficult.
Minister, you ably stated that the learned Justice of Court of Appeal, now the chairman of the Electoral Commission, you are the first judge to be in the Electoral Commission. Nobody knew COVID was coming. Can you respond to the issues?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Honorable members. Honorable Chair, I take note of the presentations by my Honorable Minister and the Land Attorney General, which have touched on many of the issues that were raised before this committee. Now we have categorized the questions and comments and observations that were made by members of this committee into three. One, the legality of the EC's actions or act in declaring mass campaign rallies not tenable, and two, the practicabilities of the alternative provided by the Commission, that is the use of media platforms by candidates conduct their campaigns. And three, why can't the Commission consider whether to postpone the elections? Those are basically. Now, on the question of legality, Honorable Chair, the bedrock of the mandate of the Constitution, as we all of the Commission, as we all know, is Article 61 of the Constitution, which requires the Commission to ensure that regular, free, and fair elections are held, among other things, and to conduct and supervise such elections and referenda. So that is the bedrock of our mandate and what informs our work. Secondly, Article 61, Clause 2, says that general parliamentary, presidential, and local government elections shall be held within the first 30 days of the remaining 122 days of the expiry of this government. This Parliament put in place laws to operationalize the mandate of the Constitution, of the Commission under the Constitution, notably the Electoral Commission Act. And Section 12(1), Section 12, subsection 1 of the Electoral Commission Act spells out the various powers the Commission has, among which, for purposes of this engagement, Honorable Chair, is to take measures for ensuring that the entire electoral process is conducted under conditions of freedom and fairness. And also, under F, to take steps to ensure that there are secure conditions necessary for the conduct of any election in accordance with this act or any other law. Then under H, to ensure that the candidates campaign in an orderly and organized manner. Now, as I said right from the beginning, Honorable Chair and members, the roadmap the Commission, the revised roadmap the Commission launched on the 16th is not an entirely new document. It is the same document in content as what we rolled out in December 2018.
Just a minute to interrupt you. Our expected guests are already here, the Secretary General of the NRM party and the team. We shall invite you to listen in silence as we thank you for keeping time at 12 sharp. That is, I think, why you are the Secretary General of NRM. And the Honorable Cooper is welcoming you. You know what that means. Thank you. Yes. Sorry for that. There was no way I would ignore, especially the Secretary General. And but which page are you referring to, my lord?
Oh, sorry.
Of your presentation.
I should have started. I beg your indulgence, Honorable Chair. I should have started with an apology. Now, Honorable Chair, we did receive this formal invitation yesterday, requiring us to come with a prepared submission, a written submission. By the time this invitation came in, we were in a meeting for the large part of the morning with the senior police officers who were discussing some of these issues pertaining to the implementation of the roadmap. By the time, Honorable Chair, went to my office and saw this invitation and the requirement to make written submissions, it was a bit late, and my team was working on other aspects of the roadmap, particularly the one on academic qualifications, because we feel we need to give out a public statement clarifying on who should do what in as far as the academic documents are concerned. So we have not, regrettably, Honorable Chair, we have not been able to make a written submission. I request that I be permitted present, and then within about a day or two we can file our written submissions. I beg, Chair.
Yes, I think since you are already proceeding and you clustered your submissions, I know it's not going to take very long.
No, it's not.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Members, now you listen.
I thank you for your indulgence, Honorable Chair. So I was saying, Honorable Chair, that the bedrock of the Commission's work and actions is derived from the Constitution and the laws made to operationalize that mandate of the Constitution. And I want to single out that provision under 12, the Electoral Commission Act, Section 12, subsection 1H. It is the duty of the Commission to ensure that candidates campaign in an orderly and organized manner. And Section 21 of the Presidential Elections Act, which is the same as Section 20 of the Parliamentary Elections Act, state that the Commission may determine the manner and the period during which campaigns shall take place and shall publish that information and so on and so forth. Now, honorable members, as you're already aware, COVID-19 pandemic has presented unique health and safety challenges to the manner in which usual business ought to be conducted. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the measures and guidelines put in place by the Ministry of Health to prevent and combat its spread, all aspiring for elective offices are required, not only the aspirants, but all of us, the people, citizens, non-citizens living in this country, to take into account and strictly observe the said measures by ensuring social distancing, wearing of masks, and washing of hands. So it is in that regard the Commission, its activities in the roadmap having been stalled by the lockdown that was necessitated by the pandemic, it had to come out and guide the country on the status of the roadmap and the way forward. Why? As I did mention the first time when I appeared before you, Honorable Chair, Article 61 is immovable. It's immovable as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned. We are the primary managers, the chiefs of what that article entails us to produce. It does not give us any room for maneuver to take into consideration other factors which impinge on our inability to deliver on the expectations and requirements of that article. So in that regard, the Commission acted within its mandate to tell the country that given what COVID has brought on board, this is how we shall be moving. So the only variable, therefore, is the timelines, the time frames for the same activities we highlighted in 2018, and the aspect of campaigns. I have already referred to the provisions of the law, which say the Commission may determine the manner of campaigns, taking into consideration the exigencies and the prevailing circumstances. And we are being told that in light of COVID-19, the Electoral Commission cannot work in a vacuum. It cannot ignore the requirements of observing those SOPs, because the people whom the Ministry of Health and the government seeks to protect from this infection are the citizens of Uganda and non-citizens. It is the same people who are the voters who are going to offer themselves as candidates, and therefore you cannot detach the health issues of the voters and the candidates from their general well-being when it comes to elections. So it's in that regard that we as a Commission, in a consultation with Ministry of Health experts, we were required to take cognizance of those SOP measures. Now, the other provision, Honorable Chair and members, which the Commission looked at was Section 50 of the Electoral Commission Act again. That section was cited by the Land Shadow Attorney General, which gives special powers of the Commission. Section 50 of the Electoral Commission Act, honorable members, may I read, where during the course of an election, as now we are, it appears to the Commission that by reason of any mistake, we are not dealing with a mistake here, miscalculation, no, emergency or unusual or unforeseen circumstances. I think we all agree, members, that COVID-19 was completely unforeseen, that even the best soothsayer. Any of the provisions of this act or any law relating to the election, other than the Constitution, does not accord with the exigencies of the situation, the Commission may, by particular or general instructions, extend the time for doing any act, increase the number of election officers or polling stations, or otherwise adapt any of those provisions as may be required to achieve the purposes of this act or that law to such extent as the Commission considers necessary to meet the exigencies of the situation. Honorable Chair, the Honorable Shadow Attorney General expressed the view that this provision does not give unlimited latitude to the Commission to apply it to any manner of the electoral processes. It only confines, it restricts the Commission to those mentioned aspects of extending the time for doing an act, increase the number of election officers or polling stations. You cannot extend it to the process of how campaigns should be conducted. But that's not true, Honorable Chair. I beg to, with due respect, I disagree. If you look at subsection 2 of the same act, same section, it says, for the avoidance of doubt, this section applies to the whole electoral process. It applies to the whole electoral process, including all steps taken for the purposes of the election and includes nomination. This provision, in short, honorable members, says where there is an unforeseen circumstance, as we have COVID, there are laws which provide for a certain activity or act or thing. Maybe it has set the timeline, maybe it says you shall do this in such a manner. But because of this unforeseen situation, the Commission may use this section to do some other thing not specifically provided for in any of these electoral laws for purposes of ensuring that it complies with what it sets out to do. And in our view, we are saying that subsection 2 gives us that latitude that we can apply this section to any other activity other than those which have been spelled out. So coming from this Honorable Chair, we felt we were within the law when we said that mass public rallies shall not be conducted in light of COVID-19. It has been argued, Honorable Chair and members, that by doing so, the Commission, therefore, is, one, denying the candidates a fundamental right to address their voters, and two, it is creating an election that is far from what is envisaged under the Constitution. In other words, this cannot, in as much as you ban public campaigns, therefore, you cannot have normal elections. And what is a normal election? A normal election, in our view, is what is spelled out under Article 61 of the Constitution, which I referred to earlier on, which is clear that the Commission will ensure that regular, free, and fair elections are held.
My Lord, you can refer members to the type of election that brought them to Parliament. You can give that as normal example of a normal election.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chair. I believe it was not for normal elections, none of us would be here. We came here because the process was free and fair. And that's why, Honorable Member. But let me make the point, Honorable Chair. Now, we were also referred, Honorable Chair, to the case of the Honorable Shadow Attorney General, referred to the case of Ruvaramirwa versus Attorney General, where the court held that it cannot be a free and fair election where you prevent people from campaigning. Now, given the importance of that case in the context we are considering, allow me, Honorable Chair, to give you the members the brief background. In that case, Honorable members, the petitioner, that is Ruranga, challenged before the Constitutional Court, among others, the constitutionality of the guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission in respect of local council, women council, and youth elections under the prevailing laws and regulations then. One of the sticky issues were that the guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission, giving each candidate only 5 minutes to introduce himself or herself to the electorate and then withdraw from the session. Those were the guidelines issued by the Commission. You appear for 5 minutes, I'm so and so, 5 minutes, get off, get out. Then another candidate, I'm so and so, get out. Now, it was argued on behalf of the petitioner that an election that does not allow for campaigns is not a free and fair election guaranteed under Article 1(4) of the Constitution. It was also argued that the Electoral Commission, by issuing the guidelines that did not allow campaigns and had not given sufficient time for campaigns, contravened Article 61(1)(a), which I've just referred to, of a free and fair election of the Constitution, that enjoins it to ensure a regular, free and fair election. The court observed, the Constitutional Court, that the term free and fair elections, quote, free and fair elections, is not defined in the Constitution or any other law. Then the court referred to the case of Dr. Kizza Besigye versus Museveni Kaguta Yoweri, presidential election petition number 1 of 2001, where the Supreme Court discussed the concept of a free and fair election under Article 1(4). And I quote, this is what the court said. The concept of free and fair elections is not defined in the Constitution or any act of Parliament. To ensure that elections are free and fair, there should be sufficient time given for all stages of elections, that is nomination, campaign, voting, and counting of votes. In the wisdom of the Supreme Court, that's what constituted a free and fair election. Now, honorable members, the court found, therefore, that by allowing a candidate to merely introduce himself or herself for just 5 minutes, without being given an opportunity to campaign, was an anomaly. That in a multi-party system, any law that restricts or even bars political parties from campaigning in an election at any level does not meet the standard of a free and fair election stated in Articles 1, Clause 4, and Articles 61, Clause 1(a) of the Constitution. Now, applying those facts, honorable members, to the present, the Commission has said no campaigns. The Commission has only said that owing to the need to observe the SOPs to fight the pandemic and the danger associated or the risks associated with large mass rallies, the alternative the Commission is suggesting is for the people to campaign via the media. The media is not a new concept. Is that the same as banning campaigns or giving the candidates inadequate time or opportunity to campaign, which appear to be an issue in the Rabiramira case? I do not think so. Furthermore, the concept of media campaigns, honorable chair and members, is not new. This August House, in passing the laws, the Presidential Elections Act, Parliamentary Elections Act, was cognizant of the importance of the media in furthering our democratic processes, particularly in campaigns. In Section 25, or maybe I first start with the section which applies to the members in this House. In the section under the Parliamentary Elections Act, honorable chair and members, to 22.
My Lord, I hope you are towards your conclusion.
Yes, sure. I'm about to conclude. Section 22 of the Parliamentary Elections Act, the rights of candidates. Subsection 1. An aspirant or a candidate for an election for Parliament shall not be denied reasonable access to and use of state-owned media communication. 2. In subsection 4, except as otherwise provided in this section, a candidate may use private electronic media for his or her campaign. So important is the use of media that the Parliament, even deemed it necessary to put in place prohibitive acts when you are campaigning or using the media under subsection 6. In particular, the following acts are prohibited. 1, making statements which are false, knowing them to be false, or in respect of which the maker is reckless, whether they are true or false. Like for me, the other day, some member made some reckless statement on media, on TV, that I've already prepared the declaration of results forms for a particular candidate. I'm keeping it in my drawer. I'm only waiting for this ritual to be over, and I announce what I've already done beforehand. Yeah, that is very reckless, honorable members. 2, making malicious statements.
I think it's not just reckless, but very irresponsible.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Making malicious statements. 3, or C, making statements containing sectarian words or innuendos. 4, making abusive, insulting, or derogatory statements. 5, making exaggerations or using caricatures of the candidate or using words of ridicule. 5, using derisive or mudslinging words against a candidate. Or G, using songs, poems, and images with any of the effects described in the foregoing paragraph. And then subsection 9, it says a person who contravenes any of those provisions commits an offense. So crucial, so important, so significant was the role of media in the campaigns that this August House made legislation specifically touching on what goes and what does not go. Now, honorable members, when the commission comes up and says, in light of this pandemic and what we're required to do, and given the legal framework, public rallies shall not take place, can one say that measure alone prevents a free and fair election from taking place within the confines of what amounts to a free and fair elections? That is the question. So in my submission, Honorable Chair, we believe that the Electoral Commission acted within the law in coming up with the said measures. And secondly, we have also said the Commission is having consultations with various stakeholders in a bid to explore other possible channels or avenues which can enhance the process of the candidates and the voters linking up. And one of the proposals was, how about having controlled small meetings? We are looking at all those issues, Honorable Chair, and others that we shall explicitly explain or describe in the guidelines that we are going to issue after the engagement. Now, the other one was the practicabilities. Look at the challenges of requiring people, particularly candidates, to campaign on media, using media platforms. Most of these, the bulk of the media industry in Uganda is in private hands. I'm not aware, Honorable Samuju, maybe you are informing me. But now, if Honorable Samuju owns the radio in Ikira, okay, and and someone is coming to challenge him and probably unseat him, how will this opponent be able to access Honorable Samuju's radio in that area? So the commission, in short, is saying we have taken stock of these concerns which are genuine, which are real. We are in discussions with the Minister of Information and Technology, I think. We are in discussions with the Media Council. We are in discussions with the UCC. We are going to have discussions with the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters. We have already held discussions with the political editors and reporters. We have discussions with online platform operators. We have discussions with radio talk show hosts and TV talk show hosts. So the commission is coming up to look at all these attributes that can enable the candidate. For the hugs and so on, we are sorry. We are told don't come in Tonse Mberera. I don't know how you are going to get a hug at the same time you observe Tonse Mberera. So these are issues that maybe Minister of Health should come up and advise us. But for us as the commission, we are saying in the circumstances, the commission, we are prepared, we are ready to ensure we conduct a free and fair election. which will be encompassing, which will be involving, which will give the candidates and their voters to make an informed choice. The candidates to propagate their programs and their views, and for the voters to make an informed choice of who will best represent them in Parliament. The same provisions regarding the media, honorable members, do also appear in the Presidential Elections Act. Now, on the issue of Electoral Commission, given the challenges that exist now, why don't you say you cannot do it, you cannot proceed? Why don't you say you should postpone the elections? As I said, honorable members, if you look at Article 61, it does not give us even an inch to have that consideration in our minds. First of all, the postponement of an election must be premised on the current legal framework. And the current legal framework says a state of emergency has to be declared. My senior ministers and Attorney General have already, not my senior, my boss, the Minister of Justice, has already alluded to that. Attorney General have discussed that. Let me say this, but
Before you say that, I want to give you information. Yesterday it was shared with us here that Electoral Commission, you are behaving like a pilot, and the plane is full, but before you take off, you're being advised that the weather is bad. Now, because you are en route to, say where? Japan, Tokyo, you say, I must go. That was the analogy used yesterday, not very friendly. So, you have passengers who are not aware of the weather, but you've been made aware. You have everything you need to go, and you are being advised that, you know what, you can't go now. So I want you to speak when you are responding to that, when you know members have that in their minds.
thank you, Honorable Chair. My understanding is that though I do not belong to the airline industry, but my understanding is that whatever instructions they get, is it they call the control tower or something? And secondly, meteorological department or something, all right? Now, in this particular instance, those are the experts who relay the information to the control tower, and the control tower which controls the flights and so on and so forth. Now, in our case, the experts in the COVID fight are the Ministry of Health. We had a meeting with them. And in our discussions, they advised, yes, you can have these elections provided this issue of the gatherings, large crowd gatherings, is avoided. We had a discussion with them, who are similar as the weather experts. Yeah. So in this particular instance, we do not just take off on our own. We are following what actually yesterday, Honorable Chair, we were supposed to have had a meeting with the Minister of Health. Yes.
The health ministry is the
Honorable members, let's listen, and in a few minutes we should be able to interface with them.
Yeah, the health ministry is the meteorological department, and this is the control tower.
Thank you, Honorable Attorney General, for that clarification. So, Honorable Chair, I want to be on record.
So, did the health ministry give you an alternative route to get to Tokyo? With these SOPs?
Yes. Yes, the health ministry guided that provided one, you avoid mass public rallies. As we know them in Uganda, we all know them. Secondly, for the other measures, you put in place the SOPs. For example, I have said, and I repeat for the record, with the exception of campaigns, not mass rallies, but campaigns will nevertheless take place. The other issues, attributes of a free and fair election, nomination is going to take place as traditionally, or as it is normally. Polling will take place in the normal way. A physical voter going to his or her polling station, being identified on a manual register that will be at the station with the presiding officer, and copies thereof in the hands of the agents of the candidates. Having been, the temperature will be there, don't worry, Mr. Muju. Having been identified, then the voter will be given the physical or manual ballot paper, go to our booth, which is the basin, tick or thumbprint, and drop in the ballot box. We shall put in place all those measures. Whoever gets in the queue to vote will be required to be sanitized, shall take temperature. We shall make sure that the equipment at the polling station are regularly sanitized, the pens, the BBVK machine, and so on and so forth. So in our discussion, we were of the view we could manage the processes at a polling station and observe SOPs. Unlike a public rally, Honorable Sereko is going to come with about 10 trucks loaded with his supporters, singing and drumming, packed like sardines, stepping on each other, their sweat dropping from one another, this one shouting, saliva running on the mouth of this one. How do you guard against that one, Honorable Chair, in a campaign?
Are you suggesting that Honorable Sereko's supporters have oozing saliva?
No.
Yes, my lord, I think you should be concluding.
Yes, I wish to conclude and say, the law says,
we had agreed that
the law says.
we hear them in, yes, so that because there were our questions is responding to, not a new thing.
The law says that.
But I will start here with the landlord, and I've seen 3 hands already.
Yes, the authority to declare that the situation in the country amounts to a state of emergency does not lie with the Commission. Secondly, from the perspective of elections, or in the context of elections, it's not enough to say there is a situation that amounts to a state of emergency. That situation must be such that it prevents a normal election from taking place. And the normal election, we have said, is one which does not guarantee a free and fair process from being conducted. Honorable Chair, I think I've answered the issues that were raised. Thank you.
Quickly, Honorable Sereko, then follows, you will have a follow-up, Honorable Nuagaba. Then I go to Honorable Salmon, then Honorable Semuju. Those first 4. You hold on.
Thank you, Honorable.
I know you've not answered one thing about the cities. Yeah, you'll be thinking about that. It's definitely going to come up. Yes, Honorable Sereko, we keep them brief and to the point.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chair and our guests, there are a few questions that I'd like you to address. Now, in the circumstances before us, we have directives from the President, who presumably will also be a candidate in this election, on the conduct and management of either business or life in the country during these circumstances. And amongst others includes curfew. Now, this is where I'll ask the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. Do you have any command, or do you have any capacity to lift curfew in this country? Reason is very simple. On the actual polling day, we are all aware that elections or polling closes at about 6. No, plus vote counting. You understand? And declaration, because that is all polling. It's after declaration, then that is when a polling station is closed, not to vote.
You are enlarging the meaning of polling.
So after that, Mr. Chairman, I'm talking about the reality. There is movement of persons either to the tally centers or from the tally centers or to the bigger tally center. Now, one at the moment, mobility is becoming a problem. Most far-to-reach areas do not have access to public transport. And two, borders that are one of the biggest means of transport in the country cannot move individuals or motorcycles and bicycles. They can only move the rider and not the passengers. And the reality during an election is that our agents move to cover distances from areas that are far to reach to the tally centers, or to even bring the candidates their declaration forms on that day, using those various means. In the circumstances before us now, we not only have curfew, and this would be an example of someone moving from one polling station of a far-to-reach area of about 40 kilometers to the location of the candidate's tally center or to the main tally center. So I don't know what means of transport they will use in the circumstances we have now, as to whether it would be tenable to still have curfew, and if so, whether you have the mandate to lift that curfew, or it will be a particular candidate in this election. Secondly, Mr. Chairman, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission talked about the digital use of technology to campaign. Agreed, it's one of the ways someone can reach out to their voters. However, in Uganda, the statistics show that we have 10 million households. However, the statistics are also clear that only 30% is what is covered by television. And out of that 30%, only 15% can afford the monthly payment in order to have coverage in their houses of various TVs, because TVs have carriers, let's say Star Times, Go TV, or DSTV. No, Mr. Chairman, I'm speaking now because I want our points to go across. I request that you give me some little time to pass on this.
Please, we have many people
in
here.
event of that, don't you think some people will not have the chance to listen to the message from different candidates? In so doing, did you also put into consideration to the access to power? Out of 10 million households, only 2.5 million in Uganda are connected to electricity. And only about 1.8 have the capacity to pay for it consistently year in, year out. So, how will that message roll out to them? Finally, if it's internet, connectivity to internet by use of, let's say, Instagram and any others, yes, very many people have phones, but the cost of data. So, don't you think your budget should reflect the interventions made by other ministries to remove the bottlenecks that would come up during the campaigns, or even be reflected in your funding? Honorable, finally, the Minister for Constitutional Affairs talks about lining up behind a candidate as an option. And his suggestions are premised on the notion that gathering people would be dangerous. I have no doubt. However, lining up of people envisages first gathering them in an area, and then automatically for them to line up. There is no presumption that they will come moving in lines up to the polling station. Don't you think this defeats the very same purpose you're talking about? Finally,
Okay. No,
Mr. Chairman, we have special interest groups.
We have a special interest person here. We'll ask the question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Honorable Nwaga.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank
one.
you,
One.
Mr. Chairman. Just two issues. One, I wanted to know from my learned friend, the Attorney General, whether he addressed himself to the Public Health Act of 1935, under which the COVID rules were pronounced, and as to whether that Public Health Act and the rules made thereunder comply with the provisions of Article 292 of the Constitution and Article 29, Sub-Article 1, C, D, and E of the Constitution. That's one. And two, is whether that Public Health Act and the rules made thereunder, COVID rules, comply with the provisions of Article 292 of the Constitution, read together with Article 29, Sub-Article 1C, D, and E of the Constitution. Two, since when did subsidiary registration in the form of the political parties and organizations, conduct of meetings and elections regulations, since when did subsidiary registration tend to usurp the Principal Act and the Constitution in light of the provisions of Article 71, Sub-Article 1C of the Constitution, read together with these regulations you are bringing? Lastly, to Your Lordship, the Chairman of the Commission, I would want to hear from you the kind of leverage the Electoral Commission has on private media, the accessibility of both public and private media to both the contestants and the citizens, and lastly, as to whether in your heart and deep down your heart you believe that the regulations you have set up will lead to a free and fair election, or an election that will be controlled and supervised by the police and the military, both before nomination and up to the time of declaring results.
Thank you. But as you emphasize that deep down in the heart, you know the heart, if you read the Bible, is very deceitful. Why don't you refer to the kidney? Yes. Honorable Samu.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, I just have two issues. One of them to the Minister. In the regulations, you propose that most of the power might go to the Executive Committee, if it is given. Would you think that choosing flag bearers would be appropriate at that stage, or are you promoting individual merit among the members of parties? That's what I want you to clarify to me, because I want the mechanism of why I will be picked and the other one is not picked. Maybe that could be clarification from you.
Members of Parliament from Bugiri District, can we have one meeting?
The other one, to the Electoral Commission, there's a lot of anxiety about elections. People out there are waiting. And people are asking, when is this election? Every day we have to answer questions on your behalf. And I want to say that the country is waiting, the citizens are waiting. Already we have parties. I think today I had FDC, people are already picking intention to be elected. UPC is doing the same. Of course, we're waiting for NRM, and I'm happy that the Secretary General is here. In the mechanism of you now planning this, you are mostly in meetings, meeting us, meeting whoever. When are we going to tell the citizens the procedures? Whereas you'll dodge the ones who are in lorries and whatever. People want to see their candidates. And with us who are in the kitchen, every day people are asking, where are you? They are not minding about COVID. They want to meet you as a person. They want to see you somewhere. And we are waiting, Chairman, the proposal we gave you about 50, 100 people. What is happening that you cannot pronounce yourself and say, this is what we have concluded? Because even us now, we are looking like a pregnant woman who wants to deliver, but somebody is controlling that, wait for the doctor to come. So, Chairman, can you release that anxiety from the population?
I don't want to imagine that. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Honorable Semuju.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. My questions, the Chairman Electoral Commission has not answered. Let me restate them. You've made almost every decision about this election. Why are you consulting when you have already made the decisions? 2, at the polling station, there will be a temperature reader. I am pronounced to be 38. Am I going to be turned away? If I have, for example, if I have an NRM person holding the reader, and everybody who comes, he says he's 38, will they be voting at that polling station? 2, 3, when are you issuing the guidelines? Because you have already issued them, but you don't want officially to do it. And finally, Mr. Chairman, your roadmap, the first activity was for political parties to choose candidates. We are being arrested by police, even for small meetings, to choose candidates. Do you communicate to police? Did you tell them that you've announced an exercise? Although regulations are not out, the first activity was for parties to look for candidates. Our people were arrested in Kapera Biongo yesterday. The other day, police found me holding a meeting of 5 people in Weyo Gerere, and they told me I am offending COVID rules, and the meeting was dispersed. DP yesterday was electing in Kampala. They dispersed them. So did you communicate to police that this exercise has started and the first activity are for parties to prepare? Thank you very much.
I will have the team answer. The other time we spent the whole day asking questions, and it took us. Procedure.
Order.
Yes, she's.
Yeah, this is order. Mr. Chairman, under our rules, to challenge your ruling is a matter that is well elaborate.
You need a substantive motion.
So is the member in order now to attempt to challenge your ruling?
Let me. Are you challenging the ruling of the chair? Yes.
Point of order to advise, procedure
Yes.
to be advised. And Honorable Chair,
Maybe you say guidance. It's
Okay.
a weak one.
to seek for guidance. Right, Honorable Chair, we've been in these meetings together, and practice indicates that when you let the witnesses respond in the middle of the questions, it takes far, far longer than it would normally take. And we have a team from the NRM Secretariat already waiting, and we have House this afternoon. So, Honorable Chair, I'm seeking your guidance whether it would not be more prudent for the team to take all the questions and then answer at once. Thank you.
Let's sample out. Let's sample out the first 4 lot, and then we come. We also want them, when we are asking questions, the landlord was very giving preamble. The rest were, please. Honorable Attorney General, who goes first? The Minister of Justice, did you have any question for
Yes,
yourself?
Honorable Nsereko asked me the question about lining up as an option if that would not contradict the requirement for gathering. My response to that is, if you look at the statutory instrument, what we have proposed, these are options. We are giving options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, almost 6, so that in every situation, you pick which option is applicable without violating the health rules. That's it. So if lining up, I have not finished.
Chair, by the very foundation of this document, we will be operating under public health guidelines, which prevent crowding. So the Honorable Seneco's proposal is to exclude lining up on
Yes,
this
no, I had not
document
even
to
finished answering.
give it credence.
Chairman, I had not finished.
Not patient enough to let you finish. But you get the point.
Yes, no, I'm just answering.
You are referring to COVID, and then again you are saying
What I'm saying,
lining.
sir,
Yeah.
as long as if you can,
Can we,
if you can pay attention,
we are taking more time, please. Order.
as long as there is social distancing, which is in conformity. No, I can demonstrate it. For instance, we have been in this meeting for a while. Suppose I say this lot line up and vote and go, then you bring another lot, line up, and you have a social distancing.
But order. I think it would be unfair for us at this level to anticipate what political parties are going to decide.
Thank you.
But it is proper for us to give them as many options as possible.
Mr. Chairman, for us as the special interest groups, as I would talk for persons with disabilities, the law says the willing people in that village come. So once the willing have come and they are like 10, they can space and you choose the chair, the vice, the secretary, the 5 people. So that is lining up for us. So we don't need to remove it from the what? From the options, because some of us who are SIGs, we benefit from it.
Okay.
Thank you.
The committee, I don't want us to write the report before our guests. So some of these things we do it internally. Oh, yes.
Thank you very much indeed. I think that's what these options are intended. And the last comment was the other question related to the executive. The second question related to regulations relating to executive committee of a political party having power to extend the term of office.
Are we listening to ourselves or to the minister? Let's do one. Yes?
The second question and the last one, which was directed to me, related to 7.3, which concerns the executive committee of a political party having power to extend the term of office of members of the party's organs except itself. I think that is also just to enable the political parties to be able to extend the term of office of some of its organs without itself. I think that is being fair.
And for your information, some of the political parties who gave us their views here, they said for them, their constitution is not like for NRM. Theirs is very flexible like a tube. You know, it gives them mandate to extend, like, for example, the oldest party called the DP. They said they were projecting COVID or other things that would not allow them to have election for the party structure. So for them, this would not affect them. So I don't think they would also mind. So any question for the Attorney General?
To be. Otherwise, we could charge him for neglect of duty. So, sir, to the Honorable Nwagaba, as you recall, when I was making my presentation, you see, I belabored what I defined then as the ring fence of the law under which I was bringing my presentation. I referred to Article 10 of the Political Parties Organization Act. I referred to, I think, 27. Then I took you to 71 and 72 of the Constitution. I'm answering Honorable Nwagaba on the question of subsidiary legislation. Sir, I will take you back to Article 10. Section 10 of the Internal PPO Act. It says, 10.1, a political party organization shall in its internal organization comply with the provisions of the Constitution in particular Articles 71 and 72. So, Honorable Nwagaba, Section 10 is the one who told me to go to the Constitution, and I promptly went to Section 71 and 72, which I read for you, if you recall. You recall? Because the Honorable Nwagaba, I just wanted to remind him that Section 71, Article 71, 1C, now Honorable Nwagaba, took me to the internal organization of a political party. It is the Constitution now. It is the Political Parties Organization Act that took me to 71. 71, Article 71, 1C, took me to the internal organization of a political party. Article 72 of the Constitution, subsection 3, took me to Parliament to regulate the functioning of political parties. Then I went to 27. 27 of the Political Parties Act took me to the minister. So we're in complete compliance with the Constitution, sir. Your second question on Article 92, I think you are asking me, 292, and whether the Public Health Act was not in contradiction, I think, of 292. Now, 292, yes. Yes. Now, 292 refers to modification of laws, and it goes, subject to any express provision of this Constitution, subject to any express provision of this Constitution, any laws in existence before the commencement of the Constitution Amendment Act of 2005 shall continue in force, subject to such modifications, adaptations, and qualifications as may be necessary to give effect to this Constitution. That's what 292 says. And I am telling you, the Public Health Act in its current form complies with this Constitution. That's what I'm telling you here. Okay. I thank you.
That's brilliant. Short answers. Yes.
Honorable Chair and members, I thank you. Now, let me begin with the question of the new cities. There are two scenarios here with regard to the new cities.
The member from the city MPs are here. Soroti. Okay.
Now, first of all, the first scenario are the cities that became effective this month, 2020. And there are 7. Each city has 2 divisions. Now, a division is taken to be a constituency. Now, Honorable Chair, you know that currently the prescribed number of constituencies by Parliament are 296. And all these slots are now fully occupied by named and existing constituencies. So, the new constituencies in the new cities are not part of these 296 because Parliament has not prescribed the new constituencies. So the Electoral Commission, therefore, cannot act outside what is prescribed by Parliament. So that is the position as we talk right now. 296 constituencies, which were prescribed in 2016, that is the number. And all of them, there is no free slot for any constituency, and then 296.
Minister of Justice, you have some work in a few days. Yeah, you go ahead with.
Now, the second scenario, Honorable Chair and members, I'm not talking about the counties that have been talked about somewhere. We are not talking about the counties, but they also fall in that category, that the Electoral Commission can only act on the basis of the prescription by Parliament. Now, the second category of cities or scenario cities is those ones which are becoming operational in July 2021. Now, you remember in our roadmap, those cities which are becoming operational 2021, and now they will participate in this election in their current status. And the term of office of the current political office bearers in those municipalities, which were turning cities in July, will expire also on 12th of May. Shortly after the new elected members are sworn in or take office, in July, these entities become cities. What will be their fate? I understand in the, unfortunately, Honorable Chair, I'm not yet privy to the amendments which have been assented to, that I think one of the proposed amendments, or the amendments, is that any elective positions that comes into existence after general election will await the next round of general elections. Now, I want you to look at this absurdity. You have a city which becomes effective shortly after elections. The next round of elections is 5 years away. You have members who are representing the old order, the mayor of a municipality, councillors of this. Now, that one is not our headache. It is the Minister of Local Government and this House honorable members to sort out that issue. Because for us, if the provision says we can no longer have mid-term elections, you can no longer have elections as has been the case when a constituency comes into existence, the Electoral Commission goes to hold an election.
The Minister of Justice is the one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Chair,
I just wanted to highlight that.
Chair.
He brought that and we processed it successfully.
Chair.
He will offer solutions.
I wanted to highlight
Chair,
that.
Chair, small clarification, just one. Chair, I would like the chairman of the Electoral Commission to clarify on this. There are electoral areas that will come in place after. It's a clarification. It's a clarification I'm seeking, and he has given me the authority to do it.
Which one again?
Chair, there are town councils and new sub-counties that have been created before the election, but cannot hold elections because the Electoral Commission has not demarcated and gazetted them as electoral areas. Are they falling with those that are being created after the election that will end up with elections at the general elections?
If referred to the law, those who are becoming effective next financial after the general election.
So the clarification I need from him are those which have not been gazetted by the Electoral Commission but have already been formed and haven't held elections.
Me, I don't see complication in that one. EC chairman, we are the ones who process that. Yes, maybe city. I have to. City MPs. This affects them directly. Honorable Tiku and Honorable.
Okay. May I? Sorry.
Yeah, just a minute. We may allow the rejoinder from Honorable Albert Ariko and the city MP also from Marua. You have the microphone. Go first.
Honorable Chair, I thank you for the opportunity. Honorable Chair, whereas I know that the Honorable Abbas Agaba, for the reason I do not know, prefers to ensure that the Minister of Justice cannot make additional comments to what the chairman EC has done. I don't know what persuades him to do so. But Honorable Chair, as the Minister of Justice, as I will request that he had something to add, comes in, the question is, we have heard from the chairperson of the Electoral Commission that yes, in the roadmap of the Electoral Commission, these new cities or these current administrative units will hold elections as they are today. Come 1st July 2021, what today exists as Soroti Municipality, Lira Municipality, Hoima Municipality ceases to exist. Here you have got a member of parliament sitting in this house as member of parliament of Soroti Municipality, Lira Municipality. How then will this person continue to have a legal status of remaining here for the rest of the 5 years in a non-existent constituency? Because there will be no more Soroti Municipality from that time onwards. So as the Minister of Justice comes in, these are the issues that we would like them to address the House about. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
what
Chair.
about Atiku Ayivu?
Thank you, Chair. Arua City. First of all, I want to thank you and members for allowing us to participate in this meeting. Mr. Chairman, the chairperson of Electoral Commission has made it very clear. The challenge is, or the problem has been, our Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs' speed of moving these issues. The mandate of prescribing constituencies or counties, of course, lies with Parliament, but it originates from government. And the person who is supposed to present that motion is none other than the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. So this is really a small matter, but that the Minister is not steering clear or helping the country on how to address this. First, Mr. Chairman, the lacuna that my brother, Honorable Riho, has presented of cities that are going to come into effect after the general elections can be addressed by prescribing these constituencies and gazetting them so that they have representation, or the general election takes into account their existence, so that by the time they become cities, they have representation already in this Parliament. So really for me, I think it's an easy job for the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs to bring the motion to Parliament, and we pass it, and eventually the Electoral Commission can organize the elections in those constituencies as prescribed by the motion. Thank you.
That settles it. We, Minister of Justice, do justice to the cities.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. As honorable members, you are fully aware, the creation of constituencies and municipalities and cities is a mandate of the Ministry of Local Government. And he has already tabled in the House at least part of his job on counties. You know where they are now. And I can confirm to the House, as soon as all these processes are done, I'm ready.
I will also want to encourage members from the cities, the new cities, including Masaka is okay, to get an engagement with the Minister of Justice and Attorney General outside this building so that you harmonize. Issue of representation of those Ugandans is very, very important. They should not be left out. The chairperson, Electoral Commission, you wanted to conclude.
There are some questions, Honorable Chair, which are not responded to, but I just want to assure Honorable Gaba that all those new town councils, the sub-counties, which have become operational this July, are part of the electoral process, isn't it? They are part of this program. They are part of this program. Those which have become effective this July. Yes, thank you very much. Now, the other questions, Honorable Chair, were on Honorable Semuju. Honorable Semuju, yes, it is our mandate to make every decision concerning elections. However, when you look at the law, we are also permitted to consult. Also permitted to consult the other stakeholders, because we believe a free and fair process can only be attained when you are working hand in hand with the various stakeholders. We cannot do it in isolation.
And his question, if I got it right, that you've made the decision. Why are you consulting after making a decision?
First of all, Honorable Chair and honorable members, I have said time and again, the only aspect we addressed was the issue of mass campaign rallies on the advice of the Ministry of Health experts, period. And we have said, in the interest of ensuring a free and fair process, which is inclusive, on top of our proposal for media campaigns, we shall also engage with the various stakeholders to take on board other proposals, to me, which is healthy. It is democratic, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable members, so I think it is healthy, and we invite Honorable Samaju's party, I think, has been to see us under the auspices of National Consultative Forum and the IPOD. None other than Honorable Nandala Mafabi came as representing FDC. Now, on the issue of if a voter turns to be if the temperature of a voter at a polling station is found to be 38 degrees, we are going to work hand in hand with the Minister of Health to see whether it is possible to have certain health officials, experts within the way they have task forces and so on to fight the pandemic, and then call upon them to pick this particular voter for further management. So we're going to work hand in hand with the Minister of Health.
The point also, the point Honorable Semuju was being very, very, I know by now you should be understanding him, is also anticipating that, which is bad by our rules to debate in anticipation. But it says, how about if there was somebody holding that temperature gun and is yellow-oriented? He sees this guy is coming and is blue. He says, you, 38, 40, something like that.
I think, Honorable Chair and members, the issue, first of all, it is the right of every citizen to participate in an election as a voter, as a candidate. That's why there are elaborate measures that before you disqualify one, either as a candidate, as a voter, there must be clear empirical evidence and processes to say you cannot be a candidate, you cannot be a voter. So I believe, one, since the candidates will be having agents at that polling station and the gun is readable, they will be called upon this vote. And secondly, most importantly, none of the voters is allowed to come in their party colors. We all put on ordinary, So therefore, but most importantly, honorable members, that the agents will be called upon to say, look, the temperature of this voter is so high that it threatens the whole, the other voters at this polling. What do we do? And the health people will be called on. But we are going to make sure that we avoid disenfranchising voters as much as possible.
Thank you.
Clarification, Chair.
Now that the matter has been brought to attention, there are other questions.
No, on the
the other questions, Honorable Chair.
Clarification on this.
Honorable, you have already the mic.
Have you given me the...
Because I think we should allow them to answer questions.
Chair,
Let them first answer.
Now this matter has been brought to our attention.
Yes.
We are going to put in place elaborate measures to ensure that on polling day, a voter is not unreasonably turned away for other reasons other than the genuine reasons of COVID. Yes, sir. Now, on the issue of... no, but if the temperature is 40... Okay, fine. We shall look at all those issues. We look at that. We shall look at all these issues. Now, on the issue of the police, Honorable Semuju,
Honorable members,
Honorable Semuju has raised a very important matter.
Order.
As I mentioned earlier on yesterday, we were in a meeting with the senior police officers.
The problem, some of us are talking and then we shall keep clarifying the same thing, but I'm also watching.
We were in a meeting with the senior police officers where we emphasized that the roadmap is running. The political parties are expected to carry out their internal processes. The only challenge is that in this COVID era, how can they reasonably do that without being impinged or without being obstructed? And I want to make a personal appeal, Honorable Chair, in light of the regulations the Honorable Minister is tabling, which will assist or enable the parties to carry out their internal processes in order to be part and parcel of this process, especially in identifying flag bearers, that please, if these regulations are going to be passed, let them be passed as quickly as possible. Because the Electoral Commission does not have time to extend to a political party because the regulations to enable them to actualize their processes came in late. The time is not, honorable members. It's not there.
On the issue of time,
On the
Parliament,
issue, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Chair,
see, there are so many people from Bugiri here today, so what will I do?
Chair, the
And one of them
clarification
is a
I want to
committee.
get from Justice Yabakama is one. When Honorable Semuju was asking his question on security, he was particular. He asked a question that who has the discretion to determine that this meeting is not following the COVID regulations? Because you find in politics, a policeman will come and say, because this is Semuju, this meeting is crowded. Then when he meets another person, he says this meeting is not crowded. And the police ends up using this to actually fail aspiring members of parliament and at different levels to hold any meeting or any meeting to go on. How are you going to manage this, and do you have capacity? Because I have a scenario when we were holding some election somewhere. I was standing with Taremwa. Taremwa was instructing police, leave honorable, but police was not doing anything. Voters were manhandling me. As Taremwa was just saying, don't do anything to the member of parliament.
Okay.
I have that scenario. Do you have capacity?
Okay.
Further clarification, Chair. Further clarification on the same matter, because the chairperson made allusion to the fact that he met senior police officers to inform them of the activities of political parties. Did he address the activities of independents as well with them? How did he address the activities of independents who want to consult in these processes?
Whom do you have in mind?
My good self.
Yourself. With me, I'm independent, but every time I go for the primaries. Yes. Even this time I'm going for one, so. Yes, yes, Chair.
Thank you, honorable members, honorable chairman, honorable members. Now, all these are very pertinent questions indeed, and these are the same issues we were discussing with the police yesterday, that we do not want you to create an environment or an atmosphere that suggests that whereas the roadmap is running, the actors of the roadmap are being impinged or hindered in abiding by the roadmap. And I can assure you, we are going to see changes in that area. We are holding consultative discussions with them, and we are going to come out with those guidelines, both binding the police and also the political actors. Now, the other question, Honorable Chair, was on the issue of the question by Honorable Samo. The people are anxious. Yes, it is my desire that the Commission should go out as much as possible and sensitize the people about this new normal, as they call it. How do we manage these processes in order for you to observe your constitutional right in this new normal? And it is our duty, once we are done with these consultative meetings and so on, we shall be informing the public and sensitizing the people, because the primary consideration is for the people of Uganda to remain healthy by not contracting this virus. That's the most important thing. Now, on the issue of the other question, Honorable Chair, was Honorable Nwagaba, the kind of leverage we have on private media. Now, I have said, and I reiterate, we are in discussions, we have been in discussions with the media fraternity. Now we are going to embark on discussions with the regulators, the regulatory agencies of the media, to see that fairness, equity is applied by all media houses in ensuring that they can't, because what we are doing is part of the COVID fight. Just like the people of Uganda were willing to surrender their personal liberties by being confined in their homes, by not going to places of worship and so on. So it is this part, in furtherance of that effort, that we are saying media houses, please be fair, be just, and accord all candidates accessibility to your channels. Now, on the question of on whether we believe that the regulations will lead to a free and fair elections. Yes, Honorable Nwagaba, I want to say that working together with all the stakeholders, and we are going to work together with security to ensure that we put in place the observance of the tenets that ensure a free and fair election. Now,
Mr. Chairman, I was just seeking your indulgence from Justice. Don't you think then we should put the budget for paying media houses on the EC budget? Because you cannot anticipate that a man who is struggling to get 200,000 is selling his goats for nomination fees. You would expect him to raise 2-3 million shillings to pay a radio station for 30 minutes. So the same way you are giving vehicles to presidential candidates. So why don't we, in the past elections, why don't we now factor in the cost of radio stations and the cost of TV stations on the Electoral Commission budget? At worst, even for presidential, so that we are sure
how many
all the
people have
presidential...
TVs in Aru County?
It's not there, but in the circumstance. So I was saying, why don't we factor in? We are the appropriating arm of government so that it is fair, other than having it for a chosen few. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
I want to agree with him to the effect that with this new thing, you did not anticipate. Electoral Commission, you are definitely going to rearrange your budget. And there are things that you cannot anticipate candidates to. You're creating it, but you may have to. That's the principle. You may have to ask for more funding to take care of even polling station. The setup is different. Yes, Honorable Monica.
Chair, thank you for your indulgence, sir. I also needed a small clarification from the Electoral Commission chairperson. Mr. Chairman, in view of what you are saying before this committee, that you are still in consultations with various stakeholders, quite a number that you mentioned, I want to ask you, when do you hope that this consultation will come to an end? And in view of the calendar that you've already shared with the public, don't you think this will affect the timelines that you've already put in the calendar? And do you think you will achieve this without postponement of an election which has already been thrown before you, sir?
Thank you. That is quite directly about your operations.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, you recall you have always recognized my commission as the one of the few which turns up full blast with all our members. But you notice today there is a difference. My deputy is not here, other commissioners are not here.
And even including Honorable Monica Amuding's friend is also not there.
It is not here.
Yes, so.
Now, Honorable Chair, they are meeting the Interreligious Council. They are meeting the Interreligious Council. We felt that given the time constraints, let's split ourselves. Some of us come permanent, they go. These are part of the stakeholder engagements. We should have met the Minister of Health yesterday. We were not able, but we are meeting them this week. These stakeholder engagements in our projection should wind up this week.
I should inform members that actually due to the constraints, the commitment the Electoral Commission has, I'm not their advocate, but they had reached out to me that they would rather prepare a written submission other than being here. But I want to thank you that you've divided yourselves and some of you are here. Let's make the best use of them here.
Mr. Chairman, before he
I thought he's coming to your question.
No, every time he's coming to my question.
I started from the last and I'm coming to the first.
Address the issue of curfew and we asked you about the budget.
You are taking over my chair? We know you're a landlord, but you don't determine how a student starts the answering of a question.
I'm sorry, Honorable Nsereko, I apologize. I started with the last question. Now I'm coming to your question.
He lacks vitamin P, which is patience.
Maybe let me rush to Honorable Nsereko's question. Now, Honorable Nsereko, on the issue of coverage, I agreed. We admit that across the country, we do not have how should I call it, absolute coverage or reasonable coverage, TV, radios, and so on. But according to the Ipsos study on the media landscape, which was conducted in 2018,
He was answering a question by Honorable Amading. Got interrupted. He gave half an answer. That question was important. You even recognized yourself, Mr. Chairman.
You're sitting next to her. You want to repeat the question for?
No, I have the question. I only thought I'd answered it.
No, you answered halfway. You said
Okay,
the consultation might end this week.
You know, these markers, they set difficult questions and they want full answers. So why don't you give full answers?
Thank you. My apologies, Honorable Amading. Let me answer. Yes, the consultations are scheduled to end this week. Thereafter, we come up with comprehensive guidelines. Once the consultations are done with means of health, means of information, and so on, then we come up with the comprehensive guidelines as to how we can move. It's only the aspect of campaigns, by the way. The consultations on the issue of campaigns. The other processes, as I said, are going to be the usual way, but with the SOPs in place. Time, yes, this week. Honorable Amading, I agree with you. This week. Thank you very much. This week.
Honorable Amading, you are not in order to exchange across the table. Yes.
Sorry, Honorable Chair. Now, Honorable Nwagaba, Honorable Nsereko's question. Yes, according to Ipsos media survey, which was carried out last year, there are 18 million radios, 7.8 TV sets, 18 million radios in the country. This is Ipsos, it's not mine. You go and find Honorable Chair, I seek protection. I'm quoting the data from Ipsos. Radio sets, sorry. Okay.
You want to repeat that statement again?
I apologize. I think the questions are coming like bees. That's the problem. There are 18 million radio sets, 7.8 TV sets, and 2.2 million internet subscribers. But we recognize that this may still not be enough. I didn't get that data. That one I don't have. But we are saying, honorable members, those may not be enough. And that's why we are exploring other possible alternatives with the input from the stakeholders and so on. So we are going to come up with the issues and make sure. And as I said, one of the things that is being considered, how about having a gathering of about a certain number of people? How are the candidates going to address their agents? How are they going to link up with them? How are the presidential candidates going to gather the signatures of the supporters from 2/3 of the districts? So, yes. Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Nsereko.
Thank you. You want
now, the issue of the curfew.
Yes.
But, honorable members, this is not a legal issue. It's not a legislative issue. It's administrative. The curfew is simply an administrative issue which can...
Information. With the greatest respect to my lordship, the issue of a curfew is illegal. It is enshrined in the statutory instrument issued by the minister. It's a legal issue.
I am saying it comes from the administrative need and determination on how to regulate people moving up and down beyond certain hours. In the same way it was put in place, Honorable Chair, it can be dealt with. And that's what we're discussing with the police.
And the COVID situation is evolving.
Exactly.
It's not static.
And we are aware. By the way, the people who will also be affected by the curfew are the Electoral Commission. Because as you said, once the polling stations are closed, the counting has taken place. Counting goes on at times up to 7 p.m. And then we have to move these materials from the polling stations to the tally center. And from experience, you find at times you go on beyond midnight before you have received all the effects from the polling. So the curfew was not imposed by United Nations, or we have to go back and move the General Assembly and say, please. No, it was imposed by the government of Uganda. It will be dealt with.
You've made a valid point on that curfew thing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Are you? I think you're done.
Yes, I think I'm done, Honorable Chair.
Honorable, now I'm going to pick only those who have not clarified also. So Honorable Kajara, then Honorable Cooper, then McMott. Yes.
Yes, okay, transport.
Yes, Honorable Kajara, you go first. I know what it means if
Thank you.
I hold you further.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy I'm speaking when there's the Attorney General here, the Minister of Justice, and we have the learned Justice of the Constitutional Court, who is also the Chairman of the EC. I'm alluding to the fact it is in this Constitution, the supremacy of the Constitution.
Were you in the CA?
The Constitution, under Article 2, is the supreme law of Uganda and shall have binding force on all authorities and persons in Uganda. It also provides that any law or custom, including regulation, which is contrary to this Constitution, is void ab initio. It is clear, Mr. Chairman, and so many people have talked here, that these regulations before this House point to being unconstitutional. The guidelines that the EC has issued.
I thought you were going to raise questions.
Yes, I'm going to.
You're giving a verdict.
Yes, it's a preamble. Mr. Chairman, these regulations which we are discussing, the EC guidelines that we are discussing, point to the fact that they border being unconstitutional. The Supreme Court decisions in 2001, 2006, 2016 have elaborated very clearly what free, transparent elections are. And these, Mr. Chairman, they point to the fundamental human rights, the right to vote, the right to freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, peaceful protest, freedom of association, and freedom of, as enshrined in this Constitution. All these regulations and also the guidelines issued by EC point to curtailing these freedoms. Chair, in the Rangaranga case where the learned Justice Byabakama was quoting, actually, the court quashed all the EC regulations that sought to limit candidates' campaigns in local councils, women, youth, council elections, where they were providing that they campaign only for 5 minutes. The courts quashed those regulations. And he stopped. He did not want to go that far. He stopped only at elaborating the case and so on. So, Chairman, the issue of digital campaigns, it is on record that IPOD, including the NRM party, agreed that they will curtail active participation of all citizens in this election. And that's cardinal, because under Article 71 and 61, it commands that the Electoral Commission shall carry out free and fair elections. Nowhere in our laws is a definition of digital campaigns. It is not in any gazette, it is not in any statutory instrument. So it will most likely point to the fact that these elections, although we invest in them, if people go to court, they'll have issues. At the expense of spending a lot of money, we spent a lot of money, we spent a lot of resources, and yet, lastly, Mr. Chairman, the issue of state of emergency. The EC chairperson read that under the conditions which render taking measures for security of public safety as one of the conditions that can lead to declaration of a state of emergency. The Attorney General is here. The Minister for Constitutional Affairs is here. Why don't they advise the authority? This COVID is actually a condition which is a threat to public safety. It is a threat causing death. And Chairperson, the last one, is the risk of causing death by engaging in this election. Can the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the Attorney General and the EC tell us if there is that risk, and which is real risk, of people getting infected with COVID-19, corona, and they die in the process? Can they inform this House that they will be personally responsible? They take personal responsibility so that we are sure that we go into this election well knowing if there is a problem, who is responsible? I thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think
who is second?
We finish
Honorable
here.
Cooper.
We finish here?
Sorry? You want to answer that? You just retain. I know, just contest them.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you.
But who gave you the microphone?
It is here.
Who was next?
You know, this is...
You've yielded your floor to him. Honorable
No.
Cooper. Okay, you won't talk then.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would like to understand from the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice, which country in the region or on the continent has held a general election in the form you envisage, and the safety of the people has not been compromised. And I am aware that in coming up with these regulations, you have carried out some background research to say in Malawi, there were SOPs and the numbers have gone down. In Burundi, the numbers went down. In Benin, the numbers went down, because those are countries that have held elections with SOPs. Just for purposes of us understanding where you have undertaken all the precautions and still the numbers have gone down. Number two, Mr. Chairman, the Minister for Justice, on page 2 of his presentation, makes reference to the public health control of COVID-19 rules, and specifically mentions Rule 91E of those regulations that banned public meetings. And he says it is on this basis that the regulations on political parties was enacted. The Honorable Minister for Justice and Attorney General, I just want to seek your clarification whether these rules are still operational. Is the ban still on? Do you have the most recent statutory instrument carrying this ban? And if so, which particular provision of that statutory instrument is this ban reflected? Finally, Mr. Chairman, the Attorney General did make reference to Section 10. Section 10 of the Political Parties and Organizations Act, read together with Article 71. I just want to understand from the Attorney General whether one regulation can amend another regulation,
because constitutions of political parties in themselves constitute regulations. The regulations made by the minister are also provided for under the law. Can you use regulation to amend another regulation? Because you in effect, these regulations that were presented by the Minister for Justice have the effect of amending constitutions of the various political parties. That is the effect. But they themselves are subsidiary, just like constitutions of political parties, which are registered with the Electoral Commission as per the law. Can you use a regulation to amend a regulation? You did say, Land Attorney General, that you don't find any contradiction or illegality or irregularity. The regulations are saying an executive body can extend the tenure of office over an organ of a party. Article 71 and Section 10 of the Political Parties and Organizations Act talks about 5 years. Section 10 of the Political Parties talks about 5 years.
You want to conclude?
Yes. Can you use a regulation, Mr. Chairman, to amend Section 10, which is very specific? It talks about holding elections every after 5 years, Section 10. And then you are using a regulation to say, no, you can push it beyond 5 years in these circumstances. So can a regulation amend a section of the Parent Act? Finally, Mr. Chairman, you've said
that about twice.
The chairperson of the Electoral Commission did cite Article 21 of the Presidential Elections Act. Sorry, section. And he says that section, Mr. Chairman, gives them the mandate on the manner and tenure of campaigns. I just want to find out from the chairperson of the Electoral Commission whether they have complied with the provisions of Section 21 of the Presidential Elections Act, which does not end at determining the manner and the period, but it goes ahead to say that information must be gazetted and forwarded to each returning officer. Have they complied with that provision? They also talk about, they cite Section 50 of the Electoral Commissions Act. Mr. Chairman, I want to draw the attention again of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission to Section 50. Specifically, subsection 3, which is to the effect that the commission shall, because they cite they can have special powers to ban public meetings, and they are using Section 50. And I want to find out, Section 50, subsection 3, whether they have complied with that provision, which is to the effect that in exercising the special powers under this section, you shall inform all the political parties and organizations and independent candidates of any action taken. I want to find out whether you have undertaken that obligation. And finally,
excuse me,
how do you relate, Mr. Chairman?
Honorable, finally, you know.
Because I raised these issues, but they have not been responded to.
You see this, yeah.
How does he relate Section 50 of the Electoral Commissions Act to Article 68, Sub-Article 3 of the Constitution that calls for presence of candidates and their agents at polling stations? Where, for example, we have heard that there are so far 45 people aspirants. Now these 45 will have agents for president. Yes, and you are talking about social distancing at polling stations. But you know how the law talks about the presence of agents and their location and their situation. 45 times 2, Mr. Chairman, is 90.
Let me just remind them about that, because that question you raised it ably here. So what do you do about social distancing at polling station?
Where it is constitutional. This is the point I'm saying, that where it is constitutional,
Is
what
my-
do you do with that?
Is my guidance sounding unconstitutional?
No, to them. To
Yes.
them.
I have the constitution in my forehead.
Finally, Chair.
No, you yielded your floor.
You pointed to him.
That is
I have
corruption.
one issue, sir.
Masaka.
Thanks for indulgence, Chair.
Masaka is speaking for the second time.
No.
I've not
Honorable
spoken.
Chair, thank you for indulgence, nonetheless. I have one question, sir. Yeah, sure. I get the sense that the Commission is readying itself for an enlarged exercise at the polls because of the procedures that are many. I imagine somebody could be forced to take a bath at the polling station in fear of eventualities. How many hours do they envisage to enlarge polling? And whether they have capacity and tools to actually ensure that even in the dark, people can safely vote, because in view of now a big, the numbers at the polls have grown, and in view of the curfews and the borders can't move, because I thought the Election Commission did not answer the issue of the curfew. The response was hazy, and it's returning again in view of...
You see, that is the danger now. We are going to repeat the same. We have guests who have stayed here for 1.5 hours.
Of course, when the questions are not answered, they
Secretary
return.
General with the Deputy Secretary General.
But I think I am understood.
Yes, we...
Chair. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, just 3 short ones.
Yes.
Chair, you know the problem, if all the questions that we raised the other day were all answered, there would be less. We are now, this is why you have this risk of repeating. Chair, we know COVID is real, and we don't know how it's going to mutate or change. We did ask the other day, what provisions have you provided for the people that will be found in quarantine, self-isolation, in regarding voting? Have you made any provisions for those cases? Because there are more cases. The other, they are in hospital, they are in schools, they are in Nambole. How will they vote? Two, Chair, is the issue that also we said, which is also a possibility and which is a potential risk. Where we said a situation where people are isolated or quarantined, in a case where we found 1 or 2 victims in EC, in Parliament, and this Parliament is closed, you are all quarantined in the NRM offices, in the FDC offices, the party leadership, the party administrators have all been sent on quarantine. How do we proceed? Finally, Attorney General, you seem to be hinging on a casualty before you declare the state of emergency. Your brother here and your brother speaking said, are you waiting for a death? That's when you get to know that this matter is serious, of COVID. And
Yeah.
he has put it to you.
Please.
Will you take responsibility for the death that will occur?
Honorable Talk,
With this,
one
thank you.
question.
Yes,
And
thank
we close.
you,
That's the
Chair.
final one. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have canvassed when a
direct.
state of emergency was declared.
Go direct to the
In
question.
2007, the reference was to Article 110 of the Constitution. I've also seen that there's Emergency Power Act of 1968. I've looked at the provision of Article 110, Clause 7, that says that envisage an enactment, that Parliament will enact an enabling law for a state of emergency. Given the provision of Article 292 of the Constitution and 29, which was raised, do we have an updated emergency law required under Article 110(7)?
Attorney General, you got
Chair,
that.
other than that,
please.
I have a question, constituency question. I know that the Electoral Commission has been very clear with respect to cities. They have been very clear with respect to sub-counties and town council. When it comes to county, we have 15 counties that was
But
deferred
really,
by Parliament for,
no.
for about 3. Chair, allow me.
I think
let me raise the question, Chair.
I will rule you out of order.
Chair.
I'm running out of patience.
Chair,
That's
maybe
a
if I
matter
can.
You can't. Nobody.
If this is prescribed, Chair,
please.
is there still room?
We have already resolved that
Because
matter.
there's a lot of confusion in this consequence.
The confusion, come and see me. I will clear the confusion. You can't. Vice chairperson, you are the final person because you are vice. You must fill the gaps where the chairperson has left void.
Oh, yeah. My question goes to the Chairman Electoral Commission. The most practical way, as I see it, for campaigning shall be maybe radios, really, and limited meetings. Now, these radios are privately owned. How are you going to ensure that a radio station accepts everyone who approaches it to present their campaign? I
think the vice was out.
How are you going to ensure that?
Okay. I think the vice had stepped out. But it's very important. We don't have radios. Allow us, anyway, get us free internet, what, come. Yes, can we get the responses? Beginning with Attorney General.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, they skipped the issue of mobility. You asked it. That one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Honorable Nsereko.
Honorable Nsereko.
I love the people of Kampala Central.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to quickly answer the questions of Honorable Aston Kajara. And I was paying attention to you, Kajara, Honorable Kajara. You are my friend, Honorable Aston Kajara from Kenjoju. So, but he lives in Kenya. Anyway, you kept on saying that all the things we are doing, that's why I was saying I was paying attention to you. You say we are bordering on being unconstitutional. Bordering on being unconstitutional. You said it 3 times. I put it to you that we are not unconstitutional. Maybe you saw us walking around the Constitution, but we are within the Constitution. Just say bordering the Constitution, bordering being unconstitutional. We were not unconstitutional at all. And that is why I started off by ring fencing the areas in the Constitution that we were going to, the specific areas in the Constitution that we were going to. When you talk about, I think you talked about Article 2, I think? Yeah. The supremacy of the Constitution. Yes. That was Article 2?
Yes, Article 2, page.
Yes. I agree with you entirely. The Constitution is supreme. And that's why we try to do everything under the Constitution. Of course, I'd also remember I started by telling you, the only reason why we are having these debates, the only reason why we are dressed the way we are, was because these are not normal times. That's what I was explaining to you. If you go to Article 22 of the Constitution, what we are trying to do is to avoid, to the best that we can, to avoid the deaths. That's what we are trying to do. Deaths of Ugandan, the deaths from dying. That's what we are trying to do. And if you go to Article 22, that's what it is telling you. So for sure we are following the Constitution. Then, Honorable Kajara, you asked about the Rurangaranga case. But the Justice Byamukama, the chairperson, he answered everything in the context of which that case was brought to our attention. He answered it very clearly in that context, because he was telling you that the particular area that case was addressing is not one of the areas that he's addressing as the Electoral Commission. But he can answer that himself. Then you said that if we are not careful, there will be so many cases. No, court cases. You were advising me. But that Honorable Asuman is next to you as a direct result of court. Actually, he might not have been here at all, but for the courts. And I'm very happy actually that he's here because the courts are there and they listened to the arguments we made on his behalf. And I'm just telling you that the courts are there. That's what they are there for. Then the risk of causing death, because we cannot oust the jurisdiction of the courts. If the court is unhappy with something, they will go to court. The person who went to court didn't want Honorable Asumani to be here. As a result of my chambers, he's here. So that is why we are very happy with the rule of law.
Thank you, Attorney General.
Yeah. Then the risk of causing death. I think this was also brought up in the end by Honorable Cooper, but also it was brought by Honorable Kajara. The risk of causing death. But please, our argument from the beginning has been precisely that we are trying to avoid. You seem to be saying that these new prescriptions are for the increment of the risk of death, whereas actually we are arguing that these new things are for the avoidance of death. That is why we are saying mass rallies and so on and so forth, following the Public Health Act, which I told the Shadow Attorney General was not in contravention of the Constitution. Now, that was Honorable Kajara. Now, Honorable Basalirwa, and you have said this thing before. You keep on saying, which country in the region has held elections and then followed SOPs and so on and so forth? You see, to do the right thing, I do not need somebody to have done it before. So somebody must not do something before in order for me to do the right thing. Because I am telling you now that as a matter of fact, we don't have a death. Now, other people have deaths. So should I say that now, since Kenya has got 177 deaths, let me first get at least 80? I don't have to follow anybody if I am doing the right thing. So when you are saying which country, the point is, are we doing the right thing? And it matters not whether another country, look at the USA, the #1 in the world. The person said that there is nothing, there is no COVID. You look at no masks, you look at the number of his deaths. So I don't have to follow anybody if I am sure that I'm doing the right thing. What is the evidence that I'm doing the right thing? I have no deaths. Well, what else do you want to know? I have no deaths. That's the evidence that I'm doing the right thing. Then, these rules are still operational. Well, that makes two people doing the right thing. Now, these rules, you talked about Section 10, I think. And then you talked about, I think it was you, about the Executive Committee. But that Executive Committee, Section 10 itself, subsection 3 of Section 10 is the one that says that the election of members of the Executive Committee of every political party shall be conducted at regular intervals, not exceeding 5 years. And that's what we put in the rules. The election of the Executive Committee, we're not amending that because they have the 5 years, we are saying that they're the ones to remain. So we have not done anything wrong. Honorable Okupa, Elijah Okupa, my friend, he's really my friend. You said that, I don't know whether I got the first part, but certainly the part I got, you said, am I hinging on a casualty? To quote your word, you said, am I hinging on a casualty? I didn't understand what you meant. As if you were saying that am I waiting for a casualty? But I repeat my earlier point, that our whole purpose is the attempt to avoid what we'll think will certainly cause the deaths. So no, we are not hinging on any casualty, and thank God we so far have none. So we're just trying our best under the circumstances of the day. I thank you.
Thank you. That sounds it. Minister, you have anything for you?
No, thank you very much indeed.
Your colleague has finished. About the
Mr. Chairman, I asked the Minister for Justice
yes.
on the status of the COVID-19 regulations.
Okay.
Their validity.
I answer you, they are valid.
Eh?
They are still currently valid. I have just asked my office to send me a copy. After he has postponed, you come to me, I will give them to you.
So
they are
Mr.
valid.
Mr. Chairman, in that
statutory instrument is
event,
valid.
we asked the issue of curfew
Because
because this rotates. No, it's yours. It rotates around an election, and this
Now-
is
Yes,
this
yes.
is the reality.
Honorable
yes.
Nsereko,
Mr.
we
Chairman.
have to end here.
No, because
my
you leave
question
some
was left
things
out.
vague. Let him answer the issue of curfew because he had volunteered to actually answer it.
That you want to answer?
Yes.
Border borders in Tororo and border borders in Kampala.
Curfew and border borders.
Can you
The
can you people allow me be the chair? Mobility that these members will use border borders for campaigns. If you're going door to door, you can't go with the, I know like Honorable Robin Arwakojo has a big car, cannot. So mobility, will there be some flexibility for the use of border borders and curfew?
on the issue.
Will you advise government to?
Mr. Chairman,
on the
these things
issue-
are embedded in law, and it should be law to take them away.
Honorable Nsereko, why don't you think that somebody else can guide? You joke with the blood group, or I can lose my head also, even when somebody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. As we said already, the statutory instruments are upon the advice of the Ministry of Health. It is the Ministry of Health. And we have said repeatedly that we are following their guidelines because they are the technical experts in this area. And I have told you already that our evidence is that we have no COVID deaths. Now,
in view of the.
Now, Honorable Chair, maybe you adjourn and allow Honorable Nsereko to meet me in my chambers, and then we have a fully fledged exchange. So, sir, about the curfew, and sir, the issue here is because we have to, because we have been constantly, we have been constantly balancing health and economic strangulation, as has been, discussed by many people. That is why you hear about partial lifting of the lockdown, partial, as long as you are meeting SOPs, partial, so as to answer the other question of economic strangulation that you have heard about. Now, specifically to the issue of the curfew, the reason why the curfews were there was because at night, during interactions in the night, like visiting bars, nightclubs, to avoid that, that was the reason for the curfew, the main reasons for the curfew.
I mean, the border borders are the only ones who visit nightclubs?
The main reasons. Sir, if you allow me, I'm very careful not to offend you, sir. Especially after you have reminded us that you can lose something.
Everyone can lose. But
now, sir, again, that gentleman, again, sir.
A voter in Kampala Central help me with your MP.
So, sir, as I was saying, sir, about the curfew, this is under a statutory,